All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is the second edition. This is an Inside Sports production of Dogz. We take a look at Major League Baseball, focus on the National League, and in particular, we focus on the Dodgers out here in Southern California. I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. I'll be hosting, but I cannot do this show alone. Of course, I have brought in one of the best and a longtime baseball guy, veteran of radio, and just does a fantastic job. It is an honor and a privilege. MikedUpRadio.com is the website. You can follow him on Twitter, as many of you do, at MikedUpRadio.com. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, here is my co-host for Dogz, Mike Gabriel. Mike, what's happening, man? Hey, life is good.
I'm doing pretty awful. How are you?
Doing pretty awful? Why, whatever could have happened?
Well, you know what? I always tell myself that a lot of people, when they complain and they say, oh, I had a rough day at work, it was just a rough day. You know, it's a Dodger show, and we're going to talk about the Dodgers in the last week, the last time we touched base here. And the last week, they've been absolutely dreadful. So if we're just based on Dodger baseball, I am absolutely awful, Charles E. Smith Jr. How are you?
Well, you know what? I'm doing all right. And we had talked about this when we did the last show, though. We kind of warned of it because they had been in a little bit of a slump, you know, prior to the All-Star break. And then, you know, they came out of it. When we did our last show, they were in the midst of winning 3 games in a row. But now, you know, they went on to drop 7 of 8. They dropped 4 in a row. They did win today, but man, oh man, it's been rough. It's been rough, man.
Rough to say the least. You know, very luckily they won today. Look, I think that would have been one of the most awful flights to the East Coast anybody can imagine. Who knows? Maybe some fighting, some stabbing. Who knows what could have occurred on that flight there? But seriously, some really, 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 really poor baseball in the last week. The last 6 games, they won only 2 of those games. You know, I said in the last week of the show they should win 5 of 6, worst case 4 of 6, against 2 pretty bad opponents in the San Diego Padres and the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies coming back. They got Ryan Howard back, of course. Utley's now healthy. Roy Halladay is now healthy. He was pitching that series. But a San Diego team who is at best a AAA team, they
Right.
looked awful in that series. And game 1, they won on a Mark Ellis 2-run home run late in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Without that swing, without that pitch, without that home run, they get swept against the San Diego Padres. At the same time, looking at this thing, being realistic, they also had a chance to win those 2 games Saturday and Sunday as well. We recognize that. We're going to touch base, of course, on that Kenley Jansen debacle that happened Saturday night. And, of course, Charles, of course, your man, Mike, me, of course, had to have been attending that game to see that debacle. Sit through 4 hours, and then I got to watch Kenley Jansen fall asleep, pick his nose, scratch his butt, and allow 2 runs. I'm not sure how.
Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and we got to get right into that. I mean, here you've got Kenley Jansen is in. You got Everett Cabrera winds up stealing home because now what could Jansen possibly have been thinking? You're a baseball guy. Now, just take me through that as you sat and watched in horror, in absolute horror, as the unthinkable unfolded.
What was he thinking was your question. I'm not sure he was thinking. Obviously, he wasn't. Look, he's going back there. There's 2 strikes, it's a 3-2 count, and he's going back. He's trying to take the dirt off his cleats. He's trying to give, you know, the guy at the plate the time to think is what he's doing. He's playing a head game. He's trying to breathe himself. The crowd's on their feet. It's the last strike of the game. At the same time, you know, Cabrera comes in from third base, and you're thinking to yourself, holy cow, what is happening? Everybody obviously screaming. And Jansen throws it home, sails over A.J. Ellis's head, and not only 1 run scores, but the guy from second base turns third, scores as well. He's safe at the plate. And the worst part of the whole thing was umpire behind the plate. I don't know who it was. I forgot his name. He punches him out at the plate like A.J. Ellis got him, but the ball was 60 feet behind him by the backstop. That was probably the most embarrassing thing besides Kenley Jansen. Look, that's a play, Charles, that a team sometimes just can't come back from. It's really, really tough. We've played competitively in a lot of sports, and when something like that happens, that is heartbreaking. It really, truly is. Those guys won't admit it in that clubhouse with media. They'll talk about it amongst their friends and family, but they won't tell anybody how much that thing hurt. It hurt a lot.
Right.
And you saw it reflect the next two games. You saw it against Philadelphia. You saw it against San Diego. And look, this team is the epitome of one of the worst losing streaks I've seen a baseball team go through. Not because it's so long. It's a 4-game losing streak. It felt like 40 games they've lost, only because they've gone through so much of it. Everything they touched just didn't work. Everything was just negative. And you felt like something wrong was going to happen. First and third last night, they didn't score with nobody out. They didn't score. Ellis comes up today with a runner at third with 1 out. He strikes out on 3 pitches. Kemp gets an infield hit to bail him out in the ninth. They had Ruiz hung up between first and second. He makes his face at second because Loewen's not covering his base. And of course, Kenley Jansen falling asleep. This is stuff that you just don't see a team go through when they're losing so bad and everything is going wrong. There's just certain things that happen in this streak, man, that it's just literally unbelievable. I was listening to Kevin Kennedy. I'll cut this short. Kevin Kennedy was on Dodger Talk, of course, and he said he's been through everything. He's been through every war in every system, in the minor league system, major league system, all over the place, in Major League Baseball. He said he has never, ever seen anything like that, what happened to Kenley Jansen on Saturday night.
Right. Well, the other part of it, when you talk about the way that it affects the team, and I've seen over the years when you look at a lot of teams that they might call, cardiac kids and things like that, but we had talked about on the last show how the Dodgers were in first place, but their run differential for the season they were only at plus 10 runs, so they were just a lot of those close games. They were finding ways to scratch those out. And things like this happen and the tables turn. And I've seen this with other teams where all of a sudden something like that happens. And for some reason, it's almost like there's a cosmic force of some sort that takes place. And all of a sudden, all those little tiny things that were going your way are no longer going your way. And, it's hard to stop that landslide. Like you said, they won tonight, but coming up, still, in these next 2 weeks are going to be crucial for the Dodgers coming up. They got some tough series coming up, and they got to start playing ball again.
They do, and you know what? They put themselves in this situation. You talked about it pre-show, how you mentioned that it was such a magical season, and there were so many injuries, but they were getting through it. And when a game like that happens, and you see something like that, you experience something like that, the magic is just kind of just gone. It kind of just trickles away. You just don't feel good anymore about it. You mentioned the upcoming road trip here. It's rough. It's a rough one. They go to New York. They face the Mets, a very good Met team at home. They face the St. Louis team, who's a very solid team at home. And then you hope that they get some revenge in San Francisco and they play the hated ones, the Giants. Look, you just can't fail on this trip. You simply can't. They were half a game up at the All-Star break when we talked last week. They're now 2.5 games down behind San Francisco in the NL West. San Francisco playing now, it's tied 1-1 in the bottom of the 6th inning in Atlanta. So, look, best case, you're down 2 games. Worst case, you're down 3 games. Mm-hmm. You can't fail on this road trip. They did this to themselves. They've been playing awful baseball. They've in the last 23 games, they've won 7 of those games. 7 of those games. You play 23 games, you win 7 games. That's just not going to cut it. That's just not going to cut it. So they've got their work cut out for them, and they got to go out and just go to work on the road. Just go to work.
And, the other thing is that when they do come back home, remember, they got the D-backs, too, at the end of the month. So even when that road trip is over, it's still not going to get any easier for them.
No, it's not. And it's not, you know what? And there's 70 games left in the season.
Right.
So it's not like it's not the end of August yet where you got the last month of the season. There's still some baseball left. But it's not a time for you to play bad baseball, Charles. You're not a month into the season. You're not in spring training where a guy shouldn't be covering second base in a pickle. I mean, that is uncalled for. You see that stuff in slow pitch softball. You don't even see that in Little League. 10-year-old kids know where to stand and where to be in a pickle. So when you see that kind of stuff happen, when that stuff happens, that's the rough part. When a team is struggling with pitching or a team is struggling with offense, that happens to every team every year in Major League Baseball, in any team, in any level. But when you see stuff like that, the routine stuff, the stuff that you should do, or the stuff that you are doing in spring training, and, you know, the stuff that is no excuse for to not cover a bag, Kenley Jansen sleeping at the mound. I mean, that's the stuff that really, really gets me going. And this game is too beautiful to do stuff like that. That should never happen at this level ever.
Right, and that was the other thing with Jansen, was not only allowing Cabrera to steal home, but then, you know, not covering home after he overthrows the ball.
Right.
You know?
Right. I know. It is. It's pathetic. Agree.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We'll have to just wish him luck. I don't know what we're going to do here, but, you know, do you see anything? Well, do you see the trade winds blowing?
Look, you know what? I've been so negative and I've been so pessimistic, and it feels so good to come on here and do that and to steam things up here. Before we get to the trade stuff, I'm gonna get a little positive with everybody out there listening. Look, the game today was an absolute must-win, and I hate using that term because 70 games ago, it's tough to call a game now this early, halfway through the season, a must-win. But my goodness, the situation called for a must-win. You're going to the East Coast. You're traveling several thousand miles. You don't want to sit on the plane after losing, getting swept by a Philly team, by losing a series against San Diego, and going up and playing tough teams. You just can't. So you have to win that game. And the way they won that game was very, very important. In the ninth inning, they were down 3-1. They somehow squeaked 2 runs out to tie that game. I'm not sure where that came from, but it did. And they made it happen. They fought back. They showed some heart, and it made it happen. They went to extra innings. And Matt Kemp is Matt Kemp. He hit this 2-run home run. You know, Charles, in my opinion, in any sport, there is no better way to win a game than a walk-off home run. You know, a game-winning shot in basketball doesn't feel the same. You know, in hockey, it just doesn't feel the same. In NFL, you know, a game-winning field goal, it just doesn't feel the same. So that's going to make them feel a little bit better. Now, is that going to turn the entire season around? You know, I don't think so. I don't think it will, but it definitely helps, and that's exactly what they needed. Talking to trade deadline stuff, I think there's no doubt about it. They're going to be active. Owner came out today, and he said that, look, we're going to spend some money. Doesn't matter who it's going to be. I don't care, you know, what we have to do. If we have to add payroll to the team, absolutely, I want to do it. So that's a quote you haven't heard in a long time. The McCourt era, you never heard that about. You know, Fox, you never heard that about. So these guys want to spend money. These guys want to win. They know that they're a couple of players away from doing that, from accomplishing that. So, look, they're going to look for pitching like we mentioned last week. They're going to look for a third baseman. I think they would love to find a first baseman, but the Rivera-Loney situation there, you play Rivera through 8 innings. You bring Loney in as just a defensive specialist, basically, is what he's turned into now. That's what they're going to look for, you know, and maybe hopefully a lefty in the pen. So they're going to make some moves. I think Ryan Dempster of the Cubs is one guy that they're really targeting. They would really love to have. He's a free agent at the end of the year, possibly bring him back at the end of the year, but you have, you know, nothing to hold on to long term. So you know,
if I was a Dodger fan, as a Dodger fan, in downtown L.A., looking at how they've been playing lately, I'm up there on the ledge, threatening to jump right off onto the freeway. What are you going to do, man? How do you talk me off the ledge?
Oh, no, jump. Go for it. Don't even think twice, man. This is the Dodgers. I mean, they haven't won since '88, and it's hard for me to sit here and say that. Look, a lot of people who have told me, look, they spend money. Like, come on, man. You know, the Florida Marlins won a couple titles not spending too much money. The Angels did the same thing, not spending so much money. It's not about just spending money. You know, you got to go out and get the right talent. And that's how those two teams and a lot of other teams have won World Series championships by doing it that way. But in the same time, guys like Stan Kasten, Ned Colletti, these guys are baseball minds. They understand the game of baseball. They know baseball. And to top that, it's extra, you know, little bit of icing on the cake with these guys in their deep pockets. They want to spend money. So look, are the Dodgers going to win a World Series this year? No, I don't think they will. Can they contend in the NL West? Absolutely, they have so far. You kind of get a barometer as to who's going to be in each division this time of year. The Dodgers are right there. So, look, you can jump, but at the same time, the same token, this team, in my opinion, is going to win a World Series in the next 5 years. So I think you should probably hold on. You should probably take a step back and think to yourself that, hey, man, I'm young. I'm relatively healthy. I'm a good-looking guy. I like my life. I've got good friends around me. And the Dodgers are going to win a World Series in the next 5 years. So it ain't that bad.
It sounds like you had to talk yourself off the ledge there, man. Is that right?
That's exactly what I was talking about.
Okay.
Myself. Yeah.
I thought so. All right. Well, we'll see what happens with the Dodgers there in the next few weeks. But all around, though, this baseball season, when we look at it, we look at the teams that are, in contention and actually playing ball well here still. And, we talked about last week, the Nationals, Washington Nationals trying to win their division, the Pirates playing well. Even the Baltimore Orioles are over 500 right now, which is, which is almost unheard of. So kind of a strange, quirky baseball season. Then we look at the Yankees, who you'd think Mariano Rivera going down. But, what have the Yankees done since then? It's been incredible. And they're playing some really, kick-butt ball over there. So, interesting season here in Major League Baseball this year.
Definitely. And you have these storylines every year. It's weird. And in the baseball season, there's always something different. Last year it was the pitcher's year where I don't know how many no-hitters and perfect games there were last year. I mean, it was more than any other year. Verlander wins 24 games. I mean, just a crazy year. This year, you're right. You're totally right. The standings is just quirky. It's just weird. It's you got even the Cleveland Indians somehow in it. It's Cleveland Indians. It's strange. And you look at some of these rosters, and some of these guys' names are hard to even pronounce. I've never heard, and that's a lot for me to say that I haven't heard of some guys on some rosters. These are kids that just get called up and have got bright futures and are doing the right thing. They're playing right baseball. And the key at the end of the day is pitching and defense. And the teams that you've mentioned, they have that. They've got just enough pitching. They've got the good defense, and they've got some timely hitting. Guys like McCutchen is having an amazing year in Pittsburgh. He's the guy that they're kind of rallying around. Get on my back. Let's go. Let's try this thing out. Let's see how far we can get.
Well, do you think
it's cool? Yeah.
Do you think that maybe I'm sure you saw the movie Moneyball. I know you did. So.
Oh man, I've watched it numerous times.
Do you think maybe that Billy Beane effect is kind of happening around the league a little bit, where it's about getting those numbers that you need, not necessarily replacing the names, but getting that production in the lineup that they need? It could be.
I don't think so. I think his point of view and his strategy was on base percentage, and I hate it. I'm not a big fan of it. I just the baseball background of that movie, the behind the scenes stuff was just incredible and great acting. But I don't think it would ever work in Los Angeles. Paul DePodesta, Jonah Hill in the movie played Paul DePodesta. He didn't want his name in the movie. Paul, of course, was the ex-GM of the Dodgers. You can't bring Moneyball to a big market like Los Angeles. Make a good point in Pittsburgh and Cleveland.
Right.
In those kind of cities, yes, you can. But I don't think they're using that philosophy. It's more of, we don't have much money to spend. Let's bring these kids up and see what they can do.
Okay.
So I think it's more of that than the whole philosophy behind Moneyball.
But it's still about the whole concept, though, of even though you got to work on a budget, you can't just be throwing in the towel every year. That was the thing behind it, really. So, yeah, you got guys that you got to bring up who maybe should still be, or borderliners maybe should still be in AAA for another year or something, but still, you got to compete based on the resources you have at hand. You can't just sit back and say, oh, I wish I had another $50 million to spend every year if you don't have it. So I think maybe it's, teams just learning to work with what they have so they don't have to be the Kansas City Royals.
True. No, absolutely. I completely agree. And that's what they have. They don't have the resources like a Chicago would have, a Boston would have, a New York would have, a Los Angeles would have, a Philadelphia would have. They're not a big market team. They're not going to get 40, 50,000 fans a night. They're not going to sell merchandise like those teams that I just mentioned. So it's difficult to do that. There's no doubt. And there's no doubt that, look, Charles, my number one The team that I look at for a small market team that can't spend money via free agency are the Oklahoma City Thunder. I can't remember a team that built a perfect team via draft like they did in 3 years. Guys like Russell Westbrook and Ibaka and Kevin Durant. And, you know, you go on, and Harden and Cephalosha and Nick Collison. You know, it's just not like Nick Collison, of course, via free agency, but it's small guys like that you pick up. But you bring this nucleus around Westbrook and Kevin Durant and James Harden, and then you pick up these tiny little pieces and you grab a veteran like Derek Fisher. It's amazing. It is amazing how beautifully they've done that. And teams like Pittsburgh, teams like Oakland, teams like Cleveland, that's the way you have to build. You have to build via draft. You have to. Because nobody wants to play for you. Nobody wants to play in that city unless you overspend like they did Jason Worth in Washington. Nobody's going to pay Jason Worth $121 million over 7 years besides the Washington Nationals.
Right.
You have to overpay for those guys because a lot of these guys don't want to go to small cities. You know, they want to go to big cities. So your other way of doing it is via draft. So you got to take the mindset of an Oklahoma City team.
Yeah, exactly. So you know what? Speaking of the Oklahoma City Thunder, that makes a good segue here. You know, the show is Dodger Dogz, of course, and Inside Sports Production. We talk about baseball. We focus on the Dodgers, but, you know, it's really all about sports. So let's just take these last couple of minutes. What have you got on Dwight Watch? Dwight Heward, guy from Dwight Hausman. What's his name again? Guy from Florida.
The guy who plays for the WNBA, I don't know what, right?
Yeah.
No, he was spotted at Dodger Stadium last night. You know what that means, Charles?
Talk to me. Means he likes baseball?
Nothing. It means nothing. That's exactly right. That means that he's one of the tallest Dodger fans in the world is what that means. You know, everybody reading this thing, oh, Dwight Howard's in L.A. Dwight Howard's at Dodger Stadium. Dwight Howard's wearing an L.A. cap. Dwight Howard's in a suite. Relax. You know, he's just in L.A. because he enjoys the city. I think he has a home out here. He's an LA guy. I think at the end of the day, I think Dwight Howard now is going to be a Laker. I think 50-60%, I feel that way. I think just somehow, some way the thing gets done. Lakers right now are making sure that he gets committed long-term in Los Angeles. And that's the only thing, in my opinion, that's holding this thing back. So at the end of the day, I do think that this thing gets done, though, and he ends up in Los Angeles in a Laker uniform.
Well, just a second. We might have a slight contradiction there. First you say it means absolutely nothing that he's at a Dodger game. Now you say you think he winds up as a Laker. Some of us would say there's a little bit of a contradiction and would demand some type of a clarification there, Mr. Gabriel.
Well, 3 years ago he was at Dodger Stadium too, and he was signed long-term in Orlando. So, I don't think it means anything. So, like I said, I think it just means that he loves the city of LA and he's down here. He likes baseball. The other part of it is the Lakers and the Magic are talking in Las Vegas. They're all in Vegas. So if it meant so much, he'd be in Vegas as well. Of course you get him via telephone, but I wouldn't read into it too much.
Well,
I think
maybe he just likes teams that wear blue and white like he did. So
yes,
that could be it.
There you go. Very nice. Very nice.
All right. Well, you know what? This has been fantastic, and of course we thank everyone who's joining us here for this new venture. Dodger Dogz talking Major League Baseball. Myself, Charles E. Smith Jr., along with Mike Gabriel, and we bring the heat. That's what we do. My motto here, Inside Sports, is changing the world one sport at a time. We bring it to you with no sugarcoating, as you cannot get it anywhere else. And this show has been many years in the workings, and I will have to talk, obviously. I don't want to make you commit to anything on the air here, Mr. Gabriel, but I feel maybe a Lakers basketball show coming up this fall. I'm just saying. It could happen. It could happen.
Okay. No commitments. You're saying this stuff on air, so you got to be careful what you tell people.
Oh, well, it means just like Dwight Howard being at Dodger Stadium. It's just, it's just something I happen to say on air. That's all. Just a feeling that I have.
Twitter world is going to go crazy right now. Better be careful.
All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap things up. Any final words for all the peoples out here? Anything going on at mikedupradio.com?
Yeah, I want to go back to that guy landing, having one leg on the ledge and the other one thinking, coming back or if he should jump or not. Look, if the LA Kings have won a Stanley Cup, I think it's a pretty good chance the Dodgers will win one too, right?
Oh, there you go. That's one way to look at it, and that's true. Sometimes, a team winning a championship kind of puts the other teams in motion. That can happen. So who knows? The Kings win their first Stanley Cup. They're going to contend next year, by the way, too. As we all know, it was not just a fluke. Those of us who watch the Kings know that, much to the chagrin of every single seemingly East Coast writer out there who couldn't give the Kings their props all the way down to the end, including that little punky nighttime host, what's his name, Conan something, who took a cheap shot on Twitter at the Kings, because obviously his salary does not match his talent. He didn't have anything else to say, so he's got to throw out something like that. Just a little cheap shot. Well, go ahead, man.
I think what it was I think the Kings declined to go on his show, so he got pretty sensitive about it. They instead went on Jimmy Kimmel and Jay Leno. So I think he got a little sensitive about the fact that he invited them. They respectfully declined, so he has to kind of throw in the shot there.
Yeah. Okay.
I think his tweet was, wow, it's a quiet day today, kind of like when the Kings won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Not like when they had the parade and there was over 250,000 people lining the streets, lining Figueroa to watch the Kings carry the cup. He didn't mention that, right?
Of course not. Charles, and you know what? Those East Coast guys, they're rough, man. They're rough people. Go with Tom Coughlin, and we'll end the show a little bit. But go to Tom Coughlin. How many times this guy won a Super Bowl in the last 5 years? And every time during the season, they want to put Tom Coughlin's head in a platter, those fans. And then once he wins a Super Bowl, extend his contract, give him a new deal, give him a long-term deal. Tom Coughlin, head coach of the year, he's the best. It's like, dude, relax, calm down. You hated this guy. You want to put his head in a platter. Now all of a sudden, you guys are best friends, and you've known each other for years, and your dogs walk together, and you know his hands and stuff like that. It's just stupid.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I agree with you 100%. And the East Coasters, the other thing, like I said, the reason they don't know anything about the West Coast teams is because with a 7:30 start time, most of those writers are in bed by the time, the West Coast teams start playing. So they really have nothing to go on. Although, like I said before, too, with DVRs, there's really no excuse. But you know what? They are who they are. They do what they do. And it doesn't matter. No matter what, the Kings have their name etched on the Stanley Cup. And there's nothing that anyone east of the Rockies can do about it. Period. That's it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, so let's go ahead and wrap things up here. Remember, every single week, Dodger Dogz, myself, Charles E. Smith Jr., along with Mike Gabriel from MikeDupRadio.com. Follow him on Twitter at MikeDupRadio.com. Follow me on Twitter at The Inside Sports. So for Mike Gabriel, I'm Charles E. Smith Jr., and of course, thanks for joining us for this week's edition of Dodger Dogz, and we will see you next week.